Hello, I'm Graeme, AHDB Ornamentals Knowledge Exchange Manager. I'm here at Staplehurst Nurseries as part of an AHDB project exploring the use of regulated water deficit irrigation to control growth in crops. This is a technique to control the level of irrigation applied to a crop to create a controlled stress and manage plant growth. Mark Ellis and his team at Neame have spent several years fine-tuning this technique, and in this video we will examine the commercial application of it on Poinsettia at Staplehurst Nurseries, Woodlark Nurseries and Neame.
The plants are potted in week 28 into a 15 centimetre pot, and the height spec was 35 to 40 centimetres with a minimum of 4 heads. Fairly standard stuff. I'll hand over to Katie now, who's done much more of the trial, took all the readings and knows the crop probably better than I do, and she'll run through a few bits in more details for you.
So the main benefit obviously is the less chemicals being used to control the heights. These ones are our RDI trials and these ones are our chemical control. So you can kind of see not too much difference, still acceptable and sellable. So growing them a lot drier helps to prevent diseases and pests like scarred flies, and prolonged shelf life possibly due to the slower growth of the cyathea.
So Katie just run over a couple of the benefits for water deficit growing. We had a few concerns, probably like most people at the beginning, and these were that our plants would be watered quite unevenly and therefore leave some plants really dry and some plants wet. Fortunately, our watering system, even though we use an old drip system, was fairly even, and throughout the crop we saw it quite even watering throughout the crop, so we managed to get most plants down to about 15 to 20% moisture content. How would you say our watering went in that regard, Katie? Checking that.
It's quite difficult, but about once a week to twice a week, depending on how hot it was outside, and closer to 15% I found was better for controlling the height. 20% wasn't dry enough.
So the most important thing, I suppose, is what impact the water deficit irrigation had on the plant height, and comparing that to our commercial crop. So in actual fact, the water deficit block was ever so slightly smaller on average than our commercial crop, which was had a spray program, which was quite surprising. And the quality and quality control going through dispatch is exactly the same. We haven't really seen any differences, so it'll be very interesting to see how they get on in shelf life. So that's in comparisons from commercial crop to the water deficit crop. Obviously this is a new thing to do, and Katie's been brilliant and got really stuck into it and knows probably more than I do about water deficit irrigation now, but we couldn't have done this without Neil Bragg, who kindly lent us his pulse meter, as Katie's showing you there, and this is what we use to measure the moisture content in the compost. And Katie, how did that work?
It was pretty good. With the app, just walk around, stab that in there and track it on your phone as easy as that. And you can view it from all computers and then look back at it and compare all the heights as well.
Thanks, Katie. So we were a bit concerned that the pulse meter might not give us very good readings, but it seems to give quite even readings and we didn't have any problems. So that's a bit of equipment that you can use if you want to do this quite comfortably. We also had ongoing help from Mark Ellis, who obviously really knows his stuff about deficit irrigation, and Katie's been in email conversations with him, so thanks for that, Mark. And also we used the BPIA height tracker, which we found very useful as well. That was a good tool to use. You found that quite useful, Katie?
Tracking them twice a week, like Monday and Thursday, or Tuesday and Friday, just to see how they were getting on.
Yep. And will we try this again?
Definitely.
Katie definitely wants to try it again, and so do I. It's really a nice new novel way of growing poinsettias with less reliance on chemicals. It's just the sort of things we want to be doing as a grower, and our customers also like the idea as well. So it's just about trying on other varieties, and we're definitely going to do a larger block the next year. Katie's much better at it now. And that's everything really. As you can see, have another little look at the plants here in comparison. So I'm holding the RDI one, and Katie's holding a commercially grown one. You can just, it's probably just more developed from close inspection. Slightly more developed bracts and cyathea, and maybe that will affect the shelf life, but similar, and we're very happy with what we've seen on the water deficit crops.
Well, we've been very pleased with them. They started off quite tall this year with these varieties, and of course then we started the treatment with it, keeping them dry, and it seemed to have worked very well.
It has worked, yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much we've learned as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Going forward, the benefits are clear to see now. Obviously, we've been lucky because we've had constant guidance, haven't we?
Yeah.
But even so, we've still picked up enough.
I mean, we worked with Mark for the last 2 years, and we learned so much from it.
Good.
All our own stuff now, we're keeping them much drier than we ever used to do, and
hardly got any losses.
no, hardly any losses.
Yeah.
The roots improved an awful lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm spraying less, an awful lot less than we used to.
Do you feel more comfortable now drying them down to the point at which you need to?
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. Yeah. Because that is a big challenge, isn't it? Knowing when to water and when to leave them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we both said it, haven't we?
Yeah.
That,
I mean, how many years have you been working with poinsettias?
Oh, I mean, probably nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
And I always used to keep them wetter. I mean, not too wet, of course, but this last 2 years, we've seen so much improvement from keeping them dry.
Yeah.
That the benefit is tremendous. The roots have improved for the last 3 or 4 years. And as I said, we sprayed them less.
Yeah.
They just looked a much better plant.
Yeah. And so the height controls there, the colours looks good.
Yeah.
And any issues with lower leaf drop or spikiness or those sorts of things?
Slight issues with spikiness again.
Yeah. Especially on some varieties, but it's very little.
And it's not a game changer, is it?
No.
It's not to the extent where you would look at them and say, well, we now have to reject them.
Yeah.
Because
No.
of that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's something you can live with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really is as growers, and we're fortunate enough with the system we have on the ebb and flood tables, we can adapt and employ the water deficit regime fairly well and fairly easily. And so us, the challenge is how we scale that up, obviously here at Horseshoe and also out at Clay Lake, which generally we have done this year across all the poinsettia crops, running quite I'm not say severe, but a dramatic water deficit, basically growing them dry, you could argue. I think the work for us in the future is how we target that better for that period when we get the maximum stretch potentially occurring around about an initiation, late September, early October. And also the varieties that go with it, and sensing the slight variations you would get, whether it's a late stretch that sometimes we see on the selective varieties against others that might be more dwarf, and then we can't run the water deficit as strong. But I suppose the old adage is if you've got control of the crop, you can always push. And trouble is, if you come out the side of October and you've already got a tall crop, then also you can't make it any smaller. So we use the water deficit really to set the balance or the evenness across the crop where we can. And then we can use, if we want to, we can apply obviously more water to get the extra height or bract expansion. And I think on that latter, the bract expansion is one that we may have got slightly wrong. We were running it dry for too long, and then we can reduce the size of that bract at the back end, which something in hindsight is we just got to be aware of that in the future. Although looking at here, I've got no issues really with where I ended up being on the crop. So we're looking ahead on the water deficit for next year. We want to more on the spin crops, because that's also got some challenges there to try grow without any use of growth regulators. And again, on the poinsettias, for us, it's about how we can probably use other mechanisms, not just maybe weighing the pots or using moisture sensors, and whether BPD can be used more generic across a glasshouse environment to control our watering regimes.